The harsh, metallic clangs of the Kha'zar ship's docking bay echoed as a streak of neon light flickered, illuminating the deep shadows. Captain Alex Ryder crouched behind a stack of crates, eyes narrowed, watching the motion sensors on his wrist blink red. Every muscle in his body was tense, but he couldn't afford to make a sound. He was close. Too close to let his guard down. The Kha'zar had been invading human colonies for months now, and they had taken his world, his family, and his city. But what they hadn't counted on was humanity's will to fight back. Damn it, Alex muttered under his breath. He had been tasked with a simple mission: rescue the alien prisoner, a creature unlike anything humanity had encountered before. It was supposedly of no tactical value, just an animal, an alien cat trapped in an enemy hold, its only crime being at the wrong place at the wrong time. But Alex had seen the intelligence in its eyes when he briefly came into contact with it. His team of 5 soldiers had breached the Kha'zar ship in an attempt to free the alien, and that's when they found out it wasn't just a simple feline. No, it was more than that. It was the mother of a litter, trapped, alone, and awaiting an unknown fate. Alex had seen the desperation in her eyes and knew, deep down, that rescuing her would be more than just a mission, it was personal. The ship shuddered again, this time in response to an external blast. Alex checked his wrist unit. They were under attack. The Kha'zar were furious, and they wouldn't let him take the cat, or her babies, without a fight. He silently motioned to his team. Move out. Keep your eyes sharp. We don't want to end up on their scrap heap. The soldiers split, each taking positions, moving with military precision. Alex's heart raced as he approached the holding cell, the blinking red light above the reinforced door mocking him. This was it. Behind this door lay the alien mother and her babies, their fates sealed the moment the Kha'zar had set foot on Earth. Alex heard the familiar hum of the lock as his second-in-command, Mara, hacked the control panel. Almost there, Cap. Just a few more seconds. His grip tightened around the handle of his rifle. The mission had already gone south, and every second they delayed brought more danger to the innocent creature they were trying to save. The Kha'zar were already hunting them. Get it done, Mara, Alex growled, his voice low but urgent. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of alien pheromones, a mix of fear and aggression. There, in the center of the room, stood the creature. It was indeed a cat, but it was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Covered in silvery blue fur, with eyes that seemed to shimmer with intelligence, it stood guard over its small, trembling babies. The moment Alex entered, the mother hissed, her stance protective. Easy, Alex whispered, lowering his weapon as his team moved into the room. We're not here to hurt you. Mara stepped forward, hands raised. We're here to get you out of here. You're safe now. The alien cat's glowing eyes flicked between them, her sharp claws digging into the metal floor. Alex could sense her fear. She didn't trust them, and why would she? The humans had been nothing but invaders in her world. One of the kittens mewled, causing the mother's ears to flatten against her skull. Alex's heart clenched. Suddenly, a sharp clang reverberated down the hall, followed by loud footsteps. The Kha'zar were coming. Fast. We've got company, shouted Jackson, one of the soldiers, his voice tight with panic. Hold the line. Alex barked, stepping between the alien cat and the door. The soldiers moved to take defensive positions, weapons raised. Mara, keep working. Get her out of here. We'll cover you. Mara nodded, fingers flying over the control panel once more, but the sound of rapid footsteps approaching grew louder. The Kha'zar were almost upon them. Alex glanced back at the alien cat. Listen to me. We're not your enemy. You and your babies can escape, but only if you trust us. The mother cat's gaze softened, just for a moment. She understood. But there was no time for thanks. No time for anything but survival. The door to the holding cell crashed open with a deafening roar, and Kha'zar soldiers stormed in. Their yellow eyes glowed with menace, their alien weapons poised for the kill. Alex took a deep breath, preparing for the inevitable clash. His team had one chance to get the alien and her babies to safety. They could fight their way out, or they could die trying. "Everyone, fall back," he shouted. The team opened fire, covering Alex and the alien as they retreated down the hallway. Mara kept pace, the alien cat now cradled in her arms, the kittens tucked against her chest. They were going to make it. But the Kha'zar were relentless. Every corner, every hallway was a deadly game of cat and mouse. And the stakes had never been higher. The sound of blaster fire ricocheted through the narrow corridors of the Kha'zar warship, as Alex and his team pushed forward, their backs against the wall. Sweat dripped from his brow, the heavy weight of the alien cat in Mara's arms a reminder that they weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to protect something they didn't yet fully understand. Something far more important than the fight itself. "Keep moving. No time to waste," Alex yelled, leading the charge as they navigated the maze of hallways. The ship groaned under the pressure of their escape attempt, the Kha'zar warship's systems rattling with the intensity of the ongoing battle. They had secured the alien cat and her babies, but they were far from safe. Every step closer to the ship's escape pods felt like they were being hunted, and the sense of urgency was palpable. The Kha'zar had been relentless in their pursuit, and Alex could hear the telltale sound of their footfalls behind them, getting closer by the second. Mara was holding the alien cat carefully, her hands shaking as the creature's terrified eyes locked onto hers. She spoke softly to it, trying to reassure the creature. But Alex knew that even though Mara's words were kind, the cat could only understand the tone. She was still too fearful of the humans to be calmed by anything more than actions, not words. "Hold your ground. I'll cover you," Jackson shouted, his voice tense as he fired down the hallway, his blaster cutting through the smoke and chaos that clouded their path. The Kha'zar had followed them in full force, but for every soldier they cut down, more seemed to appear. "Alex, we need to get to those pods. Now," Mara called out. Her voice carried the desperation of someone who could feel the weight of responsibility crushing down on them. Alex nodded, his chest tightening. The escape pods were just ahead, there was only one way out, and it was a race against time. But the Kha'zar weren't making it easy. They had already lost one of their soldiers, Eli, in the initial firefight. And with every minute that passed, the risk of losing more grew exponentially. He heard the mother cat hiss again, her sharp, predatory gaze flicking over his shoulder. The team had no idea how to handle the alien creature, much less her litter of newborns, but Alex had come to realize one thing: they were all in this together, humans and aliens alike. Suddenly, a loud blast reverberated down the hall. A Kha'zar soldier had detonated an explosive, sending a thick cloud of smoke and debris rushing toward them. It was a diversion, meant to force them into a trap. "Move, move, move," Alex shouted, urgency rising in his voice. "Get to the pods now." As the smoke swirled around them, Alex's instincts kicked into overdrive. His team had been in worse situations before, but this was different. This was about protecting an innocent life, an alien life, that had no place in this war. Mara stumbled slightly, the alien cat squirming in her arms as the chaos intensified. Alex rushed to her side, his voice soft but commanding. "Keep going, Mara. We're almost there." The escape pod bay was just ahead, only a few more meters to go. But there were more Kha'zar soldiers closing in fast, their alien war cries echoing off the walls. Alex's heart thudded in his chest. They reached the pod bay door just as the first of the Kha'zar appeared from the smoke. Without thinking, Alex charged forward, his blaster raised. One shot. Then another. The Kha'zar fell back, but not before taking a shot of their own. "Alex!" Mara screamed, seeing the wound on his shoulder. "I'm fine," he gritted out, though the pain burned through him. He could feel the blood seeping through his suit, but the escape pods were within reach. The pod bay door hissed open, revealing a lone escape pod. The launch sequence was already in progress. "Hurry!" Alex shouted, his voice filled with pain but determination. Mara climbed into the pod, clutching the alien cat and its litter tightly to her chest. Jackson followed quickly, scanning the perimeter for more threats. Alex was about to enter when a blast of energy struck the side of the pod, forcing him to stagger back. "No," he shouted, instinctively turning back toward the Kha'zar soldiers. "Get out now. I'll hold them off." Jackson was already in the pod, his hand reaching out. "Alex. Get in." Alex shook his head, the sight of the Kha'zar soldiers advancing too close for comfort. "Go," he ordered, voice steely. "Take them. Get them to safety. I'll buy you time." Mara's face twisted in concern, but she didn't argue. She nodded, knowing that there was no time for anything else. She hit the final button to launch the escape pod. The doors slid shut, sealing Alex from the inside. The pod shot out into space, leaving the warship behind, but Alex's fight wasn't over yet. He turned to face the oncoming threat, breathing heavily as he raised his blaster. One last stand. The Kha'zar were coming. But Alex wasn't backing down, not now, not ever. The hum of the escape pod's engines reverberated through Alex's body as he clutched the metal walls, breath ragged from the fight. The Kha'zar ship was already far behind them, a dim speck in the void of space, but the battle wasn't over. They were safe for now, but the thought gnawed at Alex, the safety of the alien cat and her babies. Their very survival was his responsibility, and it weighed heavily on his shoulders. The pod drifted in the cold, dark expanse, its sensors scanning for any immediate threats. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint sounds of the cat and her kittens, who had quieted down for the moment, settling in Mara's lap. Mara's voice broke through the stillness. "We need to keep moving. We're not out of the woods yet." Her eyes met Alex's through the dimly lit cabin. She looked tired, exhausted, even, but there was determination in her expression. She wasn't about to let this escape be in vain. Alex nodded, pulling himself up from the floor where he had been sitting. His shoulder ached, but the pain was a distant thought now. He had more important things to focus on, namely, the well-being of the alien cat. And the Kha'zar, who would certainly hunt them down if they had any chance to do so. "We're headed to the nearest Alliance station," Alex said, voice steady despite his injuries. "Once we're there, we'll be able to contact command. We can get reinforcements." Jackson, who had been silently monitoring the pod systems, glanced up. "But can we trust them? The Alliance, I mean. After everything we've been through with the Kha'zar?" Mara looked at Jackson sharply, her eyes narrowed. "We don't have a choice, Jackson. We can't stay out here forever. This cat and her babies are our responsibility now." "I know," Jackson muttered, his voice softening. "Just keep your guard up. Not everyone we meet is going to be on our side." Alex stood up straighter, pushing through the pain that threatened to overwhelm him. "Our job now is to get them to safety. We can figure out the rest later. But if we don't act quickly, the Kha'zar will find us. And this ship won't last much longer without a proper repair." Mara cradled the alien cat gently, her eyes filled with both compassion and concern. "Do you think they'll come after us? Even with the pod's cloaking tech?" "They'll try," Alex replied, his tone resolute. "But they won't know exactly where we are unless we take a hit to our comms. We can't risk that." He moved toward the control panel, activating a series of buttons to monitor their course, ensuring they stayed undetected as much as possible. Every decision from here on out had to be calculated. One mistake, and they could end up back in the hands of the Kha'zar, or worse, stranded in the deep void. The minutes stretched on intense silence as the crew monitored the ship's systems. The cat, now a steady presence among them, gave a soft meow and nudged Mara's hand. Her kittens were curled up, oblivious to the uncertainty surrounding them. Alex turned to Mara, his eyes softening. "You're doing well with her. With the kittens." He wasn't sure how else to express his gratitude, but Mara's calm demeanor with the creature made him feel like they might actually succeed. She smiled faintly, though there was still an edge of exhaustion in her eyes. "She's not as different from a pet cat as I thought. But she's scared. I can feel it. And I think we're running out of time." The thought of the Kha'zar tracking them gnawed at Alex's resolve. They were closing in on the nearest Alliance station, but he wasn't sure how safe it would be. There was always the risk that the station had already been infiltrated by Kha'zar agents, or worse, that the Alliance had been compromised entirely. "We'll be fine," Alex muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "We'll make it. We have to." Jackson looked at him, brows furrowed, sensing the weight in Alex's voice. "Alex. Are you sure you're okay? You've been pushing yourself too hard." "I'll survive," Alex said, not wanting to reveal the full extent of his injuries. "But right now, we have to stay focused. We have a cat and her babies to protect. We can't afford to let down our guard." Mara nodded, her voice quiet. "We'll get them to safety. That's all that matters." The ship's internal lights flickered as a warning alert sounded, followed by a sharp beeping noise. "Incoming transmission," Jackson said, eyes scanning the readout. "It's from the Alliance station." Alex's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the first contact they'd had since their escape. He activated the comms, and a stern voice filled the cabin. "This is Lieutenant Cora of the Alliance Defense Forces. We've detected your pod's approach. Identify yourself and your intentions." Alex stepped forward, taking a deep breath. This was the moment. Everything hinged on this. He needed to keep them safe, not just from the Kha'zar, but from potential betrayal too. "This is Sergeant Alex Hawk of the United Earth Forces," Alex said, his voice steady. "We have an emergency, an alien species under threat. We need immediate assistance." There was a pause, then Cora's voice responded. "Understood, Sergeant. We'll prepare for your arrival. But be warned, if you're carrying anything dangerous, we cannot allow you to dock." Alex's pulse quickened. He wasn't sure if they'd be welcomed, or if they'd be thrown into a containment cell. "We're bringing you something that needs protection," Alex replied, keeping his tone as neutral as possible. "Not something dangerous. We're the ones in danger." The comm crackled, and then the connection was cut. A moment of silence followed. "Let's hope they mean it," Jackson muttered. Alex glanced at the alien cat in Mara's arms. She had her eyes closed, but Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not by the Kha'zar this time, but by something far more ominous. The Alliance station loomed ahead, a massive structure in the emptiness of space, its angular silhouette punctuated by scattered lights and the faint hum of activity. Alex's heart pounded as they drew closer, the cold reality of their situation pressing on him. The Kha'zar weren't far behind. He could feel it in his bones, the certainty that they would catch up soon if they didn't act fast. The ship's controls had malfunctioned during the fight, leaving the pod's engines struggling to maintain speed. They were limping toward the station, and every second felt like an eternity. The Kha'zar, with their advanced tracking technology, would be able to pinpoint their location soon enough. It was just a matter of time. Mara sat across from him, the alien cat curled up protectively with her kittens in her lap. Her gaze was unwavering, but Alex could see the exhaustion beneath her stoic expression. Her eyes flickered toward the small life forms in her arms, the soft mewing of the kittens echoing in the quiet cabin. They had to survive. They had to. "Any chance we'll make it there before they catch up?" Mara's voice broke the tense silence, her tone soft but edged with a concern she couldn't hide. Alex swallowed, eyes locked on the view ahead. The station wasn't far, but the Kha'zar were fast, and they knew how to hunt. "We might be able to outrun them if we're lucky. But it's not about getting there, it's about what happens once we do." Jackson, who had been silently working on the ship's systems, looked up with a worried frown. "You think they'll help us?" "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But we don't have a choice. It's either that or we fight them off ourselves, and we don't have the resources for that." The ship's alarms went off suddenly, cutting through their conversation like a knife. Alex's heart skipped a beat as the warning lights flickered above them. "Contact!" Jackson shouted, pointing at the control panel. "Kha'zar ships. They've caught up." Alex's mind raced. He had mere seconds to make a decision, and he knew it had to be the right one. The Kha'zar would tear them apart if they didn't act immediately. There was no room for hesitation. "We're going to have to dock with the station," Alex said, his voice steady despite the chaos rising within him. "Prepare for impact, everyone. It's our only shot." The ship lurched as Alex flipped a series of switches, guiding the pod toward the station's docking bay. Every move was deliberate, calculated. He couldn't afford to fail now, not when so much was at stake. The Kha'zar were closing in fast, and the pod's shields wouldn't last much longer. A series of violent jolts rattled the pod as they were hit by incoming fire. Alex clenched his jaw and fought to keep the ship steady. His fingers bled from gripping the controls too tightly, but he couldn't afford to care about the pain. There were bigger things at stake. Come on, come on." Alex muttered under his breath, sweat dripping from his brow as the docking bay loomed ever closer. The Kha'zar fire continued to hammer their ship, but the distance between them and the bay was closing. "Almost there." Jackson's voice was laced with tension, his eyes darting from the readouts to the incoming Kha'zar ships. With a final surge of energy, Alex guided the pod into the docking bay just as another round of Kha'zar fire slammed into the outer hull. The force of the impact shook the pod violently, but they were inside. For now, they were safe. The doors slammed shut behind them, sealing them off from the vacuum of space. A moment of stunned silence followed before the comms crackled to life. "This is Lieutenant Cora of the Alliance Defense Forces," the voice said. "We've confirmed your arrival. We're preparing a containment team. You have exactly 5 minutes before we decide what to do with you." Alex's pulse quickened as he turned to Mara, who was still holding the alien cat protectively in her arms. "We don't have 5 minutes. We need to speak to them, now." Mara nodded, her face hardening with resolve. "Let's go." They made their way out of the pod, Mara holding the alien cat close, its soft fur brushing against her skin. The kittens were safe for now, but Alex knew that could change in an instant. Inside the station's holding area, the harsh glow of overhead lights revealed a sterile, clinical atmosphere. Alliance soldiers stood at attention, weapons drawn, watching them warily as Alex and the crew were ushered forward. Lieutenant Cora was waiting, her stern face illuminated by the station's cold lighting. "Sergeant Hawk," she began, her voice professional but not unkind. "I trust you have a good explanation for this." Alex didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, speaking with a sense of urgency. "We're not just here for shelter. We're bringing you a survivor. A species the Kha'zar are trying to wipe out. We need your help, Lieutenant." Cora's eyes flickered to the alien cat in Mara's arms. She was quiet for a moment, taking in the gravity of the situation. Then, to Alex's surprise, she nodded. "You're right. The Kha'zar have been hunting them for years. If what you say is true, then we need to protect this creature and her offspring. And we need to fight back." Alex exhaled, a sense of relief washing over him, but there was still one more obstacle. The Kha'zar weren't just going to let them go. They'd need to rally the forces on the station, make preparations. Cora turned toward her communications officer. "Get me Admiral Juno. I want to launch a counteroffensive. The Kha'zar won't get away with this." Alex felt a surge of hope. The fight was far from over, but for the first time in what felt like forever, they had a chance to win. As the crew settled into their temporary holding area, preparing for the next battle, the alien cat let out a soft, soothing purr. It was a small, comforting sound amidst the chaos, but it filled Alex with something rare in these dark times. Hope.